name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to another YouTube channel video. I'm so excited to have y'all back here together again. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing Disney remakes and ranking all 20 of them. It's kind of crazy that we have now 20 Disney remakes from the worst to the best, and we're ranking them with Pinocchio. With that said, let's go ahead and get started ranking all 20 Disney live-action remakes. Now, when I first saw this film, I initially thought this movie is dumb. This movie is a dumb stir-fire for a movie. Like, it does kind of cool time travel CGI, and there are some moments I did like with the Mad Hatter, but everything else just felt bland, boring, and not very good. And I couldn't get into it. And it's just the plot line about the Queen of Hearts and the Queen of White, like the reason why they were separate all these years, it's just so stupid. And so honestly, and even the original film felt more like a sequel than an actual remake. So overall, the movie itself is just garbage. Now, while this film is above the Alice in Wonderland 2, it's still not great. It is very bad. They try to focus on a story with Cruella DeVille getting out of prison, loving puppies, and she's like a dog lover now. And there's this new plot line with a parrot that thinks he's a dog, but he's actually a parrot. Like, what? And then there's a dog that doesn't have any spots until the end of the movie. Like, what was the whole point of this whole movie? Like, what exactly was the whole point? The animated version of this movie was better, honestly. So, I can't really say that there's anything I like about this movie besides the parrot part. The parrot part was good, and the Lady and the Tramp sequence. But everything else was just bad. Now, Alice in Wonderland, I have to say, was a bit better than the original Alice in Wonderland film, because I thought it actually told a bit of a better story in taking over, defeating the Queen of Hearts, and making it sort of like a battle action movie. I kind of found that to be a little bit more better. Granted, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Alice in Wonderland because it just was so random. Whereas like this film, I feel like it kind of worked, though it felt more like a sequel than an actual remake. But I'll take those odds, and I accept the film for what it is. Now, this was a film that I just thought was a big mess, where basically it focuses on so much stuff. Like, one of my biggest issues with the original Maleficent is that they focus on these people called the Moors, and the kingdom that Aurora is a part of. They're planning to attack these people, and I don't understand what the whole point of this movie was. And also, Aurora's getting married, and Maleficent wants to stop that, but then she also discovers other people that are like her. And granted, the cast is great, the action sequences are amazing. It's just the movie itself just deals with so much, and it's like, what are you trying to do in the end? And I guess the stuff that happened to Michelle Pfeiffer's character was kind of fun, as she was a big villain towards the entire movie, and now she's getting tortured and turned into some duck or something. That was kind of cool and fun to do, but otherwise, not a very good remake or sequel. Now, when I watched this movie, I only watched it once, so I don't really have a big connection with it. Of course, Dumbo is adorable in the movie, like he always is, like all these other Disney characters and Disney animals. I just think the biggest problem here is that they focus more on the human characters than with the actual character of Dumbo. Like the original Dumbo, it worked because it was honestly a lot shorter, and it was able to actually make things feel real. Like they actually were able to make emotions feel very real. And the cast was cool with Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton, but it's like, it seems like people were more focused on that than the actual character of Dumbo, and I didn't really care for it. The human characters weren't really that interesting, Colin Farrell isn't. The whole story with them and the kids wasn't really interesting, and even the kids had terrible acting. I don't know why they were casted. Like the girl never smiled or anything. Like she said something. She was basically Wednesday, and basically just utter slaughter. Like just not very good. So yeah, the movie was forgettable, and I probably will never watch it again. Now this movie is actually underappreciated as it is a remake of one of the sequences from Fantasia that basically is the Mickey Mouse sequence. If you've seen pictures of Mickey Mouse, if you've never seen Fantasia but you've seen the pictures of Mickey Mouse with the red coat and blue sorcerer's hat, that is where that's from. It's from the movie Fantasia, where basically it's a movie filled with all these different sequences of music and colorful animation. It was the third Disney animated feature film that Walt made back in the day. It was released the same year Pinocchio was released too. Cool thing, because we're reviewing it because of the remake of Pinocchio. But the Sorcerer's Apprentice, I thought it was a pretty good film. You know, having Nicolas Cage be being the sorcerer, and Jay Baruchel being the apprentice, I thought that was cool. Having Alfred Molina as our villain. The whole love interest thing I thought was nice. I think the big problem here is the whole backstory of the evil girl and possessed. I never really thought that was interesting. It just feels very off. But overall, it was actually a pretty fun time for Disney for a Disney movie. And honestly, it didn't really feel like a remake because it felt like it just told its original story. It just called it Sorcerer's Apprentice because it has all the stuff of sorcery and stuff. But overall, I did like it. Now, this is the first ever live-action Disney remake that we got before the 2016 Jungle Book that we got many years later. And as the first Disney remake, I thought it was pretty good. It felt a little bit like Tarzan at times, but most of the time it just felt like I was watching just a nature documentary. Just a very old one, like the ones they released back in 1960, and the African Lion, Cat of the Jungle, all those little short movies they released back in the day, in the 1960s and 50s. But overall, you know, making it more realistic where the characters don't talk kind of made it a lot more emotional, as whenever characters got hurt, it's like you actually felt emotional for them. And then, like, the whole stuff with Shere Khan, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Most of the movie, for me, was just kind of forgettable. And that's kind of why I put it a little bit lower. But I did like it when I first saw it, so... But I haven't seen it in a long time, so... It is good, though. Now, this movie... I remember when I first saw this when Disney Plus launched. Like, I saw it. This was actually the first thing I saw once Disney Plus launched. The thing is just because Disney Plus launched on a day when I was going to school. It launched on like a Tuesday of November of 2019, and this was the first thing I watched on Disney Plus ever. Like before everything else that was streaming before, and it was fine. You know, Tessa Thompson, she worked as Lady. I think this movie kind of had the same problem that Lion King did, where I don't feel like the animals showed emotion in their faces. Like, sure, it was fun. It was fun to revisit this story again. It pretty much is the same story, just a couple of scenes and dialogue added in, and a couple of characters, genders changed, especially with the little Yorkie dog. There were some funny scenes. There were definitely some scenes that made me laugh. And some of the castings I thought was pretty good. Tessa Thompson works as Lady. I thought it was pretty good casting. And so yeah, it mostly is the same story. I like the original film. It's a very classic Disney animated film. Has some iconic scenes. But overall, this movie itself is okay. Now, if I'm being honest, when I first saw this movie, I was like, yes, I honestly felt the same emotion that I did with the original film. And to this day with certain songs, I still do. There's multiple songs in here where I'm like, I like these version of these songs way more than the original version. Like the Gaston song, I listen to this version of the Gaston song way more than the animated version because it has a lot more upbeat. It's a lot more singable and re-singable, and I guess you could say you kind of care about the characters and the journey that they're going on and all this stuff. And so I guess you could say I felt the same way I felt with the original film. I guess the only problem here is that they try to do some things differently and it just doesn't work. But also, if you really think about it, at the end of the day, you are probably going to watch the original film. But at the same time, I actually did like this film. And I think it's honestly underappreciated because it's a remake that just does because you can't really do a remake of a great story. And I think this movie was pretty good. So I liked it. Okay, so if you know me, the original Lion King is one of my favorite Disney animated films of all time. It's an absolute masterpiece and everything is going for it. And when I heard that they're making a remake of The Lion King, I was like, yes, they're remaking this, they're bringing that story to life. All of my favorite moments of that film is coming to real life. And first off, you know, the way that Jon Favreau made this whole film together is simply astounding. Every single shot in this movie is absolutely amazing, as every shot just looks real. Like, you literally look like you can just go in and punch Simba in the face. Well, not punch him, but it looks like you could actually hold him. Just everything looks absolutely real, and it's like, it feels like you can actually just go there. And you can't. And also, there's some songs in here that I think are much better than the original. Obviously, Be Prepared and Can You Feel the Love Tonight, easily the original versions are better. But there are some songs in here that I thought was like, they captured the heart of the original, and the singing and the voices of those characters really worked in this version. Also, Timon and Pumbaa, probably the best part about this movie. Once they came on screen, I was like, they're the heart of this film. They made this film way better than it used to be. Especially since, you know, you got Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen, which are very funny people, so they work as those characters. I will say this, though, and also the stuff they did with Nala and stuff, I thought was pretty cool, to add some little differences to the movie, and all the little details with everything was pretty cool. When it comes to the actual, like, story, they don't change much. I guess I didn't mind that because I like the story. Because, like, I was even rewatching it, I'm like, this is cool. But at the same time, it's like there's parts of it that I don't like because the animals aren't emoting, so you can't really feel the same emotion. And so, but at the same time, it's like, because you like the story, you don't really care about that, but at the same time you do, because you want to feel the emotion like you did in the original. And so, yeah, I felt that the animals didn't emote well, and even that also kind of does it with the Mufasa death and the Can You Feel the Love Tonight scene, because it's supposed to be a romantic scene between these two characters, but it's just lions just running and doing weird stuff like the remake, and it just does not look right. So overall, the movie is good. Just some minor issues with the lions not emoting enough, but I did like the film though. So this movie was actually one of the first Disney remakes that came out after The Jungle Book in 1994. And this was actually a pretty good remake, you know? It pretty much told the same exact story. You actually cared about our two lead human characters way more, because they're more charismatic and stuff and careable. You also cared about the story with the dogs and what they're doing. The whole plot line about him kind of paying for video games, and then he makes a Dalmatian game was pretty fun, to be honest. Kind of went back to the original animated film. And then once you get into the end of the film, you have like this whole Home Alone type thing. And I think the highlight of the movie is Glenn Close as Cruella DeVille. She absolutely wins it. And this was way before she played Nova Prime in Guardians of the Galaxy. So This was like one of her best performances, and she nails it as this character. So I enjoyed this movie. It's a little bit forgettable at times, but I do enjoy it though. Now, when this movie was announced, I'm like, we're seeing Winnie the Pooh in live action. Like, this is amazing. And then we got the trailer, and it's like, it kind of does the stuff what Hook did, as well as Alice in Wonderland did, and basically telling it as like a sequel to all these Winnie the Pooh adventures. Because let's be honest, Winnie the Pooh has so many stories, it's like it's not really, because it's like, there's not really a definitive first film, and there's not really a definitive second film. Because, like, we have 2 Disney animated features that were released before this. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh that was released in 1977, and one film that was released in 2011, Winnie the Pooh. So, and it's basically just its own individual story. It's just a bunch of Winnie the Pooh books compiled into a movie, and then the movie's over. Like, for an hour and something minutes. And so with this movie, I feel like it took an interesting turn on the Winnie the Pooh characters and telling the Hook story. And basically just brought you back to what those films did. And I thought it kind of did something new and exciting. But the problem here is, like, I guess it kind of... Okay, I may have put it too low. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this. I think... I need to rethink this list. I think when I do my ranking when Little Mermaid comes out, I'm gonna put... I think when this video is over, I'm gonna put it higher, because I'm rethinking about this, and it's really a movie about going back to what you did best. And basically, even though he's older, because like the Hook did that. Hook went back. Peter Pan went back to Neverland, and he did the stuff with Hook. And this movie is kind of about Christopher Robin going back to what he did when he was a child, and that's awesome. And it brings a lot of nostalgia factor to that. So, if I'm being honest, I'm gonna put this higher once this video is over. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna put this higher because I gave this film a little bit too much credit. I'm a little bit too much hate. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Now, this is honestly a very exciting movie. Granted, I wasn't able to watch it when it first came out on Disney Plus. I had to watch it when it came out on Disney Plus for free on December 4th. But I was still able to check it out, and it was a very interesting movie. I think the theme of her leaving her family was a lot more interesting in this film than in the original. And the film is also capulated with bunches of different characters. And I also like that they kind of made it less goofy and made it more realistic but at the same time still doing humor. And I thought that actually worked for the film. And also the action sequences are absolutely incredible. All of them are well choreographed. And overall, the movie is pretty good. The story with the bird character turning into a human and a witch, not the biggest fan of that storyline, but I honestly dug this film. And I love the original Mulan way more. Now, this film, I personally feel like, did what it was supposed to do and basically captured the emotions of the original film. Of course, there's going to be tons of stuff that you don't like. Of course, I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hanks were amazing as Jiminy Cricket and Geppetto. I thought they were some of my favorite performances. Keegan-Michael Key was perfect as Honest John. I wish we could have gotten more of him, though. I love Luke Evans as, like, the horseman to Pleasure Island. And he has, once again, this movie proves that he has an amazing voice like he did with Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. Also, just all the iconic scenes that we got from the original film is just amazing. And just recaptivating this story again was just really exciting, and you actually cared about it. You actually liked it. The new love story with the new character that Pinocchio falls in love with. It's pretty cool. And then the character of Pinocchio himself is charming. He's likable. He's adorable. And he also just has this sort of Elmo vibe to him. And also, I also like the way they did that you don't need to make everything realistic with making certain characters cartoony, like making Honest John an actual fox. Jiminy Cricket doesn't look like a cricket, so we make him look like the original film. Put emotion in Cleo and Figaro's face. Like, all that, you don't need to make it so realistic. Just do it like the animated film did. Make it animated, but in real life. So I like that. And also, I like that the way they actually did different stuff from what they did in the original movie. Like, a day after Pinocchio's made, Geppetto sends him to school. Why would you send a magical wooden puppet kid to school a day after he was made, or a day after he was born? And like, that doesn't make any sense. Or that the fact that why would you show Pinocchio smoking and drinking beer in 2022? That's not right. So I like that the way they actually replaced it with just him drinking root beer instead of drinking actual beer. I thought that was more reasonable. I guess the other thing I didn't like is the Pinocchio has superpowers bits. I also wish we could have gotten more of those iconic scenes, especially with some of the songs. But overall, I thought this movie worked for what it was going for. And also Robert Zemeckis also nailed it as what he was going for. So I thought this movie was really good. Okay, so I was actually very late on this film because I didn't see it until 2020. And before I watched it, I wanted to go and watch the original Pete's Dragon because I didn't really want to watch a remake that I knew nothing about the original. And the original film is atrocious. It's one of the worst Disney animated films of all time. As you basically put a animated dragon in a live action world. And I don't really think that fits because they're like trying to do it like Space Jam and Roger Rabbit, and it doesn't work. This film, however, I feel like it. First off, the special effects I thought were pretty cool. All the stuff with the look of Pete's Dragon looked amazing. The whole cast I thought fit the world that we were exploring here was cool. The whole story of this and the whole story with our villain. Like, the whole story was just really good. You actually cared about everything. And overall, it was just a pretty good film, and I really liked it. Now, this is a movie that, while it does really tell the same story, besides just doing that whole once upon a time bit and turning it into a scene where you basically just get the entire the origins of Cinderella and her dad. I thought that actually made the story of this movie way better, and it actually like kind of explored Cinderella as a character and made her much more careable and understandable as to what happened with all that. And then even then, as you go throughout the entire film, you actually care about the stuff when she meets the prince and all that stuff. Whereas like in the original film, like when she meets the prince, it's like it's iconic, but it's just a classic tale, and I think they did very well with what they did in this film. And then of course, the CGI, the special effects in this film were also great. And then also, you also just hate the evil stepsisters and evil stepmother. I thought Cate Blanchett was great as the evil stepmother. She nailed it. I think my only flaw with my biggest flaws with the movie is I wish we could have gotten more of the songs in this film, and I wanted to see more of the mice and stuff, and we honestly did not get much of them. But overall, I thought the film was still very good. Now, this was a film that when it first came out, I was like, this is actually really good, like all those other Disney remakes. But then I kept rewatching it, and I kept thinking, sure, they're telling the same story. But I think what made it really good and put it in my top 5 is that they actually did a remake that did it properly, where, sure, you could still do the same as a story, but if you add a certain something in there to make you actually care about this story, then you're actually going to have a fun time. And for me, I feel like, sure, they kept some of the same lines in there, but sure the story is still the same, but they added new scenes and new lines and all this stuff that I thought was interesting, and even it made you fall in love with this story again. Like for instance, I think what makes it work is that like in the original film you have all these crazy action sequences and adventure sequences, and it's perfect for live action, and it works in this film as you're like flying through this Arabian city and on the flying carpet, and then he's like jumping through buildings with Abu and trying to steal the money and stuff. And then like even the songs I thought worked from the original film. I'm disappointed that we didn't get the Jafar song, unfortunately. And I thought the songs were great. The cast was great, and it felt like they actually were those characters, and it felt like that they actually cared about being in the movie. And then, of course, I think the biggest highlight of the film is Will Smith as the genie. I thought he was perfect. He didn't feel like a copy of what Robin Williams did with the original character. I thought Will Smith was perfect. It's kind of sad that we're probably not going to get Aladdin 2 in probably the next 10 years, since we can't have anyone place Genie. He's the perfect Genie actor. I will say this, I was disappointed with that we didn't get the Jafar song, and I was disappointed with Jafar. That was like the only negative I had with the film. I wanted him to turn into the giant snake instead of just turning into the giant genie at the end, like he did after he turned into the snake. But overall, the film was an absolute blast, and I absolutely love it. Though it's not better than the original film, though. Now, this was a movie that when it first was announced, I'm like, okay, a Cruella de Vil origin story. That's cool. Taking place before the events of 101 Dalmatians. But then they announced that Emma Stone's gonna be casted as Cruella de Vil, and I'm like, what? Like, you're casting Cruella de Vil? Emma Stone as Cruella de Vil? Like, how's that gonna work? Because they're two different characters, two different people. Like, how are you gonna do that? And once I saw the movie, I'm like, this movie, she works. Emma Stone is the best thing about this film. Her performance is absolutely incredible. She doesn't feel like Emma Stone trying to imitate Cruella de Vil. She feels like Cruella de Vil herself. And just kind of making her, honestly, everybody was bothered by that they turned Cruella de Vil into a good guy. I wasn't bothered by that. I wasn't. But, personally, it added this sort of feeling with the soundtrack, possibly one of the best soundtracks since like Guardians of the Galaxy in any way, as it added novelty to the story. It also just made you actually care about like her henchmen and stuff, and even then some of the action sequences I thought were pretty cool. The whole backstory of who her parents were, I was so shocked. And then when you get to the end credits, it's like the way that it actually connects with the 101 Dalmatians and stuff, that's really interesting and really cool, and I would love that. So this was a film that was very surprising, and I'm honestly very excited for Cruella 2. Now, this is a movie that a lot of people are very negative on for some reason. I am not one of them. I personally love this movie. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Sleeping Beauty. I like the film, but it's not one of my favorites. With this film, I feel like that they did what Cruella did, except they made it a great story, where they told this character and mixed in all these events and kind of made everything connect together with the whole Sleeping Beauty story, but at the same time told an original story with the perspective of the villain, and then pretty much once it gets to her Aurora being older, it kind of tells that story in the perspective of the villain and how the villain grows and basically gets evil and all this stuff. And when she starts to kind of learn to love and realizes that she has to be the one to kiss Aurora, I'm like, this is really cool. I love this. And of course, Angelina Jolie was perfect as Maleficent. great, one of the best castings ever. Also, some of the action sequences were pretty good. Pretty much a lot of things were great about this film. The only thing I don't like about the film is really the Morris plot line. That was just not, that didn't need to be in there. Everything else I thought was absolutely great, and I love this movie. The sequel I hate, but this movie I love. Now, if you know me, I like the original Jungle Book, but I have to be honest with you, the worst thing about that movie was the story. Of course, what made the movie great about the original movie great was the characters and the fun songs and all that stuff. The problem with the movie is that the story was just lame. The animals help Mowgli get to the man village. Along the way, he meets all these amazing characters. In this film, I feel like that they actually crafted a story where they were actually able to do all the stuff that you loved from the original Jungle Book, but except made a story that was great. So first off, like, they actually created a whole, like, they actually kind of made it Lion King-y, where they added all these laws to the jungle with truces, and you can't eat, you drink before eating, but at the same time, it's like they also were able to do all this cool stuff. Like, they were able to include the cost sequences. They were able to include King Louis sequences, and Christopher Walken was great, and Scarlett Johansson was great as Kaa. You also get the stuff with Baloo and getting honey, which I thought was great, and a new change of pace from him just eating bananas and stuff. But then also you incorporate the story with the wolves in here, and then also I like how the wolves mattered, but then also with the elephants, because in the original film they were just bumbling elephants. Now they're like real, and they're like the creators of the jungle, and even from that, the special effects, the graphics in the movie are absolutely fantastic. Much like The Lion King, the movie just makes you feel like you're in this jungle, and that's another thing. And with the graphics, it makes you. I think when they did the whole society thing and introducing all these different animals and stuff, I think that was perfect, because if you're gonna do all these incredible things with creating a beautiful jungle and stuff, you have to create a world with all these different animals and all these different characters. And I thought it was very interesting in the way they did that. But at the same time, while you're doing that, you also need to create a story to do that, and I thought that was necessary for that. But then also, they even created reasons as to why characters are doing certain things. Like Shere Khan, his reason to hunt Mowgli in the original film was to kill him because he didn't like man, because he fears guns and their fire. This movie had a reason for that. The reason why he wants to kill Mowgli is because his father scarred him, and he didn't like that, so he wants to kill him, and plus, he also doesn't like man. And even then, Idris Elba was menacing as Shere Khan. When he did that jump scare to me with Mowgli in the theater, my sister jumped out of her. My sister literally jumped out of her seat. She was scared for her life. And even when he killed Akela, I'm like, oh my god, this guy is crazy. And then he even bit Baloo. I was like, oh no, he killed Baloo. Please don't. And so, and then even then, they even make the characters the same. Of course, Baloo's the same character. Bill Murray was amazing casting as Baloo. Ben Kingsley as Bagheera was great. Neil Sethi as Mowgli was great. And then even as the film was directed by Jon Favreau, he knows how to do well action, where especially with the animals, they don't make them all gory. And because you're in a jungle with rocks and rock slides where everything's so hard and you can easily break a bone and easily cut yourself, they do it in a way that doesn't make it so graphic. And I love the way they do it. So overall, it's action-packed, it's hilarious, it makes you feel the emotions that you did in the original film while also telling a brand new story. So overall, I just love this movie, and also the movie's beautiful with amazing performances from amazing actors that took these characters to their parts, and I absolutely love this film. So that's why it's at number 1 for me. And that's pretty much my ranking of all 20 Disney remakes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the About section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.